Everybody. That's not what I meant to do. Welcome to 100 Talk. Welcome to 100 Talk. This is the fan podcast for 100 Thieves League of Legends, the longest running in history for League of Legends. I'm Cole, that's Jordan. We're just a couple of misguided fans. Who we decided to root for a team who brings us pain. They bring us some fun moments along the way too.
And joy. Cole, it's been a season of decidedly mixed emotions.
Yeah.
We've had our highs, we've had our lows, we've had our Riantes.
I think the big challenge will be to continually remind everybody listening tonight that it's actually not that bad. It's really not that bad. We're forced to kind of talk about some uncomfortable or negative things on the pod tonight, but it's not really that bad. We got fourth, guys. All right. That's better than ninth.
Way better. Much improved.
And we look okay. We're all right.
Yeah.
You can't be the best team every season. And, it's not really that bad. In fact, when you think about it, it's pretty much exactly what we predicted at the beginning of the split. So that's the big question. All of the discussion tonight is framed around this. Isn't this exactly what we thought would happen? Isn't this exactly how everybody imagined we would be before the season started?
Right. Isn't this where the power rankings had us? Is this not where we predicted the team would end approximately or exactly? So I think the answer is yes to all of those.
And so that means that tonight's episode is just a big exercise in futility. You know, it's just what are we here talking about? Well, the truth is, as fans, and this focuses on the fan perspective because we sure as heck aren't smart enough to be actual League of Legends analysts. But as fans, there are some kind of concerning things. There's some weird stuff, and there's stuff that probably isn't really that big of a deal, but we need to get that out there and actually talk about it. So, That's what we're here doing, is just having a normal call your parents kind of night.
Yeah. And Cole, tonight I'm powered by Ripid Energy.
Ooh. What flavor are you rocking tonight?
Power energy drink, 0 calories, 0 carbs. That's the full name of the flavor. I'm going to say it every time that way.
Well, someone mentioned copium in the Twitch chat, and so that's why I'm drinking a Citrus X tonight, my favorite flavor.
Treat yourself.
Yeah, Ripid's amazing. If you haven't had it yet, you are messing up the energy drink game. Let's just say it that way. Look, Jordan's beard is making it hard for me to concentrate on the rundown because it is full and thick and groomed and beautiful. Its splendor is catching my eye while I'm trying to look at the rundown. I'm going to do my best, and I trust everybody else to do your best too, to focus on the conversation tonight instead of on that magnificent piece of hair growing that he's done on his face.
If you slip up, it's okay. Don't worry. I understand.
Look, okay, here's where I want to start. We got to say it. And we've been alluding to it for a while.
Yep.
I think we've moved into fully, yes, it's happening territory. Ssumday is slumping. Slump day.
Ooh.
And that breaks my heart because my heart's shaped like this, by the way. It's like Rafiki cracking open the thing in Lion King. I love this guy so much, man. And he's done so much for this team. And there's this whole litigation that needs to happen where there's a line between Ssumday has no help and Ssumday's not getting ganks, and Ssumday's making some uncharacteristic mistakes. And we're going to explore where that line lies in the sand.
Yep.
And where we stand on it. Jordan, is Ssumday slumping and why or why not?
I mean, I think you kind of already hit on this point. You didn't phrase this segment as a question. You just said he is.
I was just speaking from my perspective.
So my perspective is the same as yours on this. I don't think you can argue it. The fact that he is not playing up to his normal level is inarguable. He just isn't. The thing you can argue is why, in which ways, how. Is he bad at weak side? Like all of these things, right? But I don't think you could, nobody's saying that nobody's talking about him as being a MVP candidate, which I believe as recently as last split, he was at least getting a mention, right? As he has, I think for probably more of the splits than not that he's been here. And he's never been like the runaway lead candidate for that. We've come a long way from that. Like that's when that is your bar, when that's what you typically do on a team that finishes 8 or 9, you still get in that conversation for best in league. Like that's a special talent. You bring a lot to the game if that's how people think about you. How many times have we seen a great player on a bad team go unappreciated, unnoticed, right? I think it was Alfari, in fact, who was in 10th place in the LEC, if I'm not mistaken. He came over here.
It's LEC. I don't watch it, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I don't either.
Terrible product.
He is absolutely smurfing, right? Yeah. Like he is the most recent abuser of Ssumday in the top lane and just feasted. So like that's the kind of thing where you look at a guy and say, well, the team was not there for him, but he still is kind of that standout talent. So yeah, he's slumping. I don't think it's to say he's not is just, it's not being honest. And I think if you're not honest with the assessment of the talent, it makes it hard to really think about, well, what do you need to change, right? Or what do we need to improve on here? And it's weird, Cole, because it's the first time in 3-4 years.
This is the 4th year. Yeah.
This is the 4th year, 3.5 years, that this has been a topic on our agenda. And I don't really know what to do with it, if I'm being honest.
I think it all comes back to something that I've experienced as a law in my life. And the law goes a little something like this. Dudes who annoy me will say something to annoy me and end up being right even when they're not really right. Okay, that's the formal explanation of the law. And what I mean is, Freak made his Ssumday his 6th thing happen.
Yeah.
And because Freak annoys me, it became true. Because as you and I both know, the universe is really influenced by my feelings and actions and thoughts. And
that's certainly true.
This is borne out in all areas of my life, to the point where, and it like, just I've avoided watching Illinois games and basketball games on purpose, and we've won every single one I haven't watched, and we've lost every single one I've watched. It's like that, right? But he spoke this into existence. It wasn't true when he said it, and it has become true.
It has become so much more true. The thing that hurts me the most is that I would say one of Ssumday's worst outings happened when Freak was on the call. Like, couldn't it have been anyone else?
Jordan,
to his credit,
more on that later.
I don't know. Yes. We'll come. I don't know that he actually said anything on the broadcast about it, which to his credit, he did his job. And his job is not to flame people.
Yeah.
Live. But yeah, it is the case, Cole, that your misery is compounding in this specific regard.
Yeah. Look, here's what I wanted to say about this. I saw on Twitter and in our Discord, a lot of talk about like the no help thing, right? It's like, okay, well, what do you expect of Ssumday when he doesn't get ganks? He doesn't get any investment. He doesn't get any resources. Now, I think that this is largely a true assessment from, I think in the past 3 or 4 weeks, what we've seen is an ever decreasing amount of attention gone his way. Now, historically he has played weak side extremely well and has prevented getting into situations that would cost the team largely. So I do want to say that I understand this part of the argument, right? I get that. How can he get ahead if they're throwing a lot of attention to him and we're throwing no attention to him? Yes. So yes, that is true. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's true that he is getting caught out more and more every week. He's going too far forward, whether it's in a lane, whether it's during team fights. He seems to miscalculate when he can escape more frequently. And he seems to be increasingly out of sync with closer in particular. Some of the things we see from him that are really uncharacteristic are like just starting plays way too early or giving up on a play when closer has it. Like remember the famous like Ssumday finished his recall when closer was waiting in the bush, which would have been a kill. Or alternatively, this past weekend when he engaged 1v3 and there was some like maybe he didn't know the other two people were there. Someone pointed out like he might not have had vision on them.
Sure.
Either way, he was clearly trying to set up a play for the rest of the team to arrive, like way before the rest of the team could actually arrive. So the windows, the calculation has not been as sharp as we are used to seeing from him. Then on top of that, it seems like if you take Renekton away from him, that's all you got to do, right? I mean, he's played Gnar 3 times and he's 0-3 on Gnar and has looked bad each time, despite landing a 5-man ult, which again was just kind of out of sync with the team, right? Because that was after Ryoma got wiped and we wouldn't have the manpower to win that fight. So, yeah, I'm really confused by this. I think I've said it that like that Ssumday is my favorite under T player of all time, right? Like I've absolutely loved being a Ssumday fan. I've loved having him on this team, but dang, man, what is happening?
I don't know, but it is, I feel the same way you do about that. Let me follow up on a couple of things. So in the past, Ssumday has played really good weak side games to the point that I think it becomes almost a win condition for us. So when and teams eventually just stopped doing this. And this might be part of the reason why Ssumday was able to kind of have the lane kingdom he did. It was a bad idea to try to kill Ssumday in lane. Yeah. Because you either left without collecting and
having
by
burned
the way,
your summoners and exactly.
Let's not forget that there is, a failed dive is not a zero-sum game. You come away with that with fewer resources than when you went into it, because one, the enemy team knows where you are, frees them up to respond elsewhere with the jungler, right? Like if they know where your jungler is, they're free to do whatever they would like without fear of reprisal elsewhere on the map. And for us, I think that a lot of times it translated to successful dives in the bot lane, roams in the mid lane, right? If you're not worried about getting caught in the jungle, go ahead, take a stroll. So that is a source of value for our teams in the past that has always been there. We've always been able to use Ssumday to get something for nothing by just playing in his lane, by doing nothing other than being Ssumday in lane. So it was a bad idea to go. And sometimes he would actually get himself kills, right? So he's trading 1 for 1.
I would argue
so he's
that
actually getting stronger himself.
Right. I would argue that if there is a typical Ssumday play in the LCS, it's when he gets a tower dive, 1v2, and one or more of the enemies dies. I would say that's exactly. Like his signature play, right?
That's the Ssumday for sure. And we've seen other people do it. Fake God pulled it off on us, right?
Yeah.
Like the protege has become the master in that situation. And there's one specific play that I watched, and it kind of made me feel sad inside. And it was against FlyQuest. It was early on. And Licorice, he's going mega. He's on Gnar. He's going mega. And as soon as he hits mega, he ults Ssumday into the tower and stuns him. And I don't know if Ssumday had a flash up. In the past, if he didn't have it up, obviously wouldn't have flashed it. But it's that kind of play, right? Where there's one specific moment of outplay that Ssumday makes, and then it puts the team in a position where they're not sure what to do. Do they continue to invest time and energy into this dive attempt, which usually ends up in one of them getting killed? So that's the difference between Ssumday in the past, is the first try doesn't work, and it leaves teams either eating turret shots or, having to make a decision. Do we burn our summoners? Like, do we call on a TP? What do we do?
Yeah.
So it's becoming easier and a more sure thing to go topside and collect. And that reduces how well we can do everything else that we want to do, right?
Yeah. And to the point where I would be interested to see, and if I would have thought of this before, I would have done it before the podcast. I would be interested in seeing how many games we're not really seeing the enemy focus top lane. Because right now they're straight up exploiting it, right? Seems like it's in every team's playbook to make multiple champion plays in top lane and to kind of beat up on Ssumday, especially because you're not messing with our bot lane. So
that's a bad move. Yeah,
right. So that's basically where you got to go. I'd be very interested to see that. Like, what percentage of games are teams actively focusing Ssumday? Because do you know what? It's starting to feel a little bit like Niles and Golden Guardians. Niles is being actively bullied all the time. He's not really that bad of a player, but he is getting the full LCS hazing experience, where they're just ganging up on him all the time because he is theoretically an exploitable weakness, which is something that we've been familiar with in other positions on the Rift for 100 Thieves. It's just
never top.
Very foreign, to feel that coming into top lane.
Yeah, and he got chain ganked, right? Like they just kept coming back.
Just come back.
Multiple times while his summoners are down, like in the same cooldown, right? You show up, you get 3 kills in lane. That's crazy. It doesn't happen that often. And in part, we haven't talked a whole lot about why. I mean, I think some of this just is that the mechanical expertise that we've seen in seasons past doesn't seem to be as prominently on display. I think another part of it is I think he is still playing as if he is as strong a weak side player as he's always been. Like, people have found a piece of his game they can exploit, and they're exploiting it. And I don't think he has caught up to recognize I have to play this a little bit differently, right? And I think it takes a lot for a player of anything, right? Any sport to do that, to recognize there's not as much heat on the fastball or whatever, and adapt. But he's getting caught in situations where it is easier to gank him.
Yeah,
I think historically, part of the reason it's been such a bad investment is because he plays it very smart, right? He'll keep the wave where he wants it. If he knows he's weak side and he doesn't have help coming, he's not finding himself well beyond river that often. But man, on this Gnar, it's just like he needed like 4 jumps. He needed to have 4 Gnar jumps to get back to safety, and he unfortunately has 1, which is just never was enough. So I think we need to see that adaptation happen, or else this will continue to be a thing.
And I don't even want to say this, but I'm gonna have to, because Ssumday's been playing League of Legends for a long time, man. He's only 24 though. He's only 24, so hopefully he's got a long, healthy career in front of him. Because I love him, and I want to continue to watch him be on 100 Thieves and destroy. But yeah, it's not gonna be awesome all the time, Yeah. I hope his time is way further in the future, and I hope this is just a slump. I think that's the important thing. Is this a slump, or is this a downward slope?
Right.
Slump or a slope?
A slump or a slope. There it is. Slump or slope.
And I very much hoping, and I think honestly that it's just a slump. Okay. Anything else on Ssumday before we move on?
We love Kind Boy.
We love Kind Boy. We're pulling for Kind Boy all the time.
Always. Yep.
So Jordan, what did we learn about Ryoma this week? That's the next thing.
Yeah.
Or just so far. Or last week it was like, okay, all right. 1 week, okay.
Yep.
Now it's 2 weeks. Okay. 6 games though. 6 games. How are you feeling about that position?
Here's the thing. The setup is this, Cole. I've learned he is more or less the same player. He is more or less the same mid laner that we saw all of last year, with the same flaws in his game, the same imperfections, the same tendencies. A lot of these things are positive. He has a lot of the same strengths too, right? Like, he is not an entirely different player. He went to academy, and I think what happened, if I had to try to summarize it, is he was able to use the strengths he had in the LCS and dominate. And he was top of the stat board, right? Like damage share, damage per gold, all that kind of stuff. Like, he's that guy. He's always been that guy, and he still is. So for me, here's what I learned about Ryoma. He's still Ryoma. And in some ways that makes me think, like, I'm brought back to the place we were at last season, which is this guy could be a good bet. Like, man, if he could shore up some of these weaknesses in his game, there are games he has where he absolutely pops off. And sometimes within the same game, there are moments where you're just left scratching your head, like, what were you doing there, bro? Like, that there was a TP we saw over the weekend that was the wrong TP to take.
Yeah.
And
that didn't
like
good.
Some of those moments, like I'm thinking back to a game last season where we saw the tale of two flanks, right? Like, there's one flank where he just sprints head first into 4 people and is dead immediately. And there was another flank where he got like a at least a triple, maybe a quadra. And that is still Ryoma. And I don't think we should expect him to change. Like, it's probably not fair. We all hope that he would come in and it would be like this. He would be this league beating mid who just was untouchable in team fights and never made mistakes and had crazy pressure in mid lane all the time. It's not who he was. It's not who he is. And I think there probably still is an upside. And I still think that he's an interesting piece of this puzzle with this specific iteration of the roster. But he's still Ryoma.
Yeah. The damage thing that has been kind of the main topic of conversation with him this weekend seemed to bear that out some more. He and FBI are 1 and 2 in the LCS for damage share on your team in terms of percentage, right?
Right.
Jizuke actually out damages Ryoma by like a small margin, I think, for number 1 overall.
As share or permanent?
As hard as a damage stat, like not damage percentage. So yeah, we know that seems to be more of a feature than a trend or whatever, that he's going to get a lot of damage done in these fights. And I tweeted out actually this weekend that you really should watch how he fights if you weren't paying close attention, because he does some really, really amazing things during fights. He really provides some additional avenues for escape, especially. He's done that in really interesting ways that you wouldn't expect. He's basically like always on the verge of turning a fight with an interesting play. And that's kind of a wild card factor that I don't think we have with a player like Damonte, who generally, like in fights, he would kind of do his job, right? And like no surprises really. And sometimes he got caught out, did reasonably good job of putting in damage, but wasn't like a pop-off threat in most fights. Ryoma tends to be someone, it seems like he's a more consistent pop-off threat in a fight, even though he might also int it. He might also TP straight into the middle of the team. Though honestly, I think that was one of the only like significant mistakes he made this weekend. I don't think he played well against TL. Obviously, I don't think anyone did. We looked
no one did.
Thoroughly outclassed in every way against TL, which I was expecting. But
I agree.
I feel like he didn't really do a lot of like bad things this weekend. I thought he played fine and he fought well. Like his lane phase is like, but I thought he fought well. So here's the thing. It's like,
and one last thing on that, and don't lose your thought.
Yeah.
But that bad TP, there's a version of that fight where that is a winning TP, right? Like,
you mean when Ssumday and him trade places?
Well, the way it played out. But like, if we actually have the advantage and we're going to press it, like he is in an aggressive spot. That's who he is, right? He plays aggressively. He wants to be in the middle to finish out a fight. So, like, I'm sure that's what he's thinking. I doubt he misclicked. He was just trying to pick an aggressive spot, and the fight while he was channeling his TP turned thoroughly against us, right? So yeah, I mean, it's still a mistake, but I can see what he was going for, and it's consistent with how he plays the game, right?
Yeah.
Like if that fight is going our way, he looks like a genius for picking that aggressive spot. It scares them off. They start to, like, they're routed, right? He's in a spot where he can then chase people down, get a carry. Like, there's a version of it where that looks like a Galaxy Brain play.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, if you focus on the other parts of the game besides the team fighting, which I highlighted as a strength of Ryoma, I don't know. To me, it feels like if you had to describe him, it's like, again, eliminating team fights in the mid-late game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably compare him to a player like Damonte. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, he's right. He's not dominating his lane. He's looking to make roams. Right. They're not always the best, right? They might be a little late, but he's looking to make those plays. Moves around the map a little bit. Tends to have these like small CS deficits, right? Like about 10 CS behind.
Right.
But moves around, so kind of is worth it, right? It just feels like, in that respect, he's a lot like Damonte. And so it's like, if the whole Ryoma versus Damonte thing is, how do you know which player to pick? Well, Ryoma gives you what Damonte gives you early, and then also adds on top of it, I think, a more threatening team fight. So we're still figuring that out. It's only been 2 weekends of games with Ryoma. I do think we're gonna stay with him through all of playoffs, so we'll get to see how this is borne out. But it just seems like it seems like the trade is a worthwhile one at this moment. The one area where that may not be true, and we can't definitively say it's a problem with Ryoma or an advantage of Damonte, but it seemed like the dives tended to be cleaner with Damonte.
Yeah.
So when we were making early plays, Damonte's play seemed a little cleaner, right? Now, and let me be clear about something, because also, we tend to try and rewrite history when we talk about these things retroactively. Look, our dives in our early game and our aggression, that got bad while Damonte was still our mid laner. All right. Yeah, so this is not a put Ryoma in and everything fell apart with our dives. That's not what happened here. And I've started to see people say stuff like that. Yeah, the problem was there with Damonte. So, maybe it's just a closer thing. I'm not sure. But I don't know. So up to this point, and again, I will say that I was surprised when they actually did sub out Damonte, because even though I predicted that would happen, I thought that he had performed better than I expected him to up to that point in the split. So I wasn't like totally sure it was time to bring in Ryoma, but now that we have done it, it does seem to be like a slight boost, a slight upgrade, because I think that team fighting is worth it. We're going to need to see that borne out over a wider champion pool to say that definitively, I think. But as of right now, it's like, I think what we've learned about Ryoma up to this point is that at this moment in this meta, it's a small net negative, or net positive, excuse me, net positive.
Yeah.
Net negative rolls off the tongue. Sorry.
It does way better. Net neutrality too. It's, I think we're a better team. Typically with Ryoma, we've looked like a better team than when we had Damonte in toward the end of his time on the roster, right? I think especially in our winning games, we've looked very strong. Like, we kind of cured, it seems that we've cured more or less the ailment we had, which caused us to win our winning games in a very anemic fashion, right? Like the games where we'd win just limping across the finish line, or we'd win after somebody made an unbelievable throw. Like, don't forget, fans, watch back some of the victory cams, and people are like like wiping their brow, like
like the Dignitas
ooh,
game this weekend.
yeah, it's yeah, you're right. So a lot of those wins, and a win is a win, and it counts the same when you go to playoffs. But a lot of those wins were very, they were not looking like a sure thing.
Yeah.
So it is good to see us again in a dominant position in some of these games. I mean, like the FlyQuest game, right? That was a very important game for us for a lot of reasons. That was a 6-10 FlyQuest when we played them. That kind of gets you to the stratification of where you are in this league. And if you lose to FlyQuest, the conversation is about how you're a mid to low tier team.
Yeah.
And you beat FlyQuest, especially in the last weekend, and you're more of a mid tier team, right? Like, and we're fourth. So, yeah, I agree with you. When we've looked good with this current iteration of the roster.
Yeah, and I mean, in the FlyQuest game, it was specifically pop off FBI and pop off Ryoma. It was carry bot, carry mid.
Yeah,
it looked great. And Ssumday in that game died 5 times. Worth pointing out. All right,
2, 5, and 12 is the stat line, perhaps.
Yeah, 2, 5, and 12 for him. So I don't know, but I think you're right. It's on Camille. So I think you're right. I think beating FlyQuest was kind of this. Yes, we are exactly where I think we belong in the rankings, and exactly where we thought we'd be. So from that sense, it's kind of like, that's all right. I'll take 4th place. From where we were last year, I'll take 4th place. Jordan, I would like to extend the opportunity to you to throw a dart at our rundown and pick out a topic. Because I don't know where you want to go from this point. So,
well, I'll just, what you said is, like, that's where we need to be, beating FlyQuest, right where we thought we'd be. And I want to do a quick callback to something I said earlier on, which was, at our worst, we need to be playing like the 5th place team with this roster. And I think I said this when we were like first in the league, right? Or tied for first. Were we ever first? Were we second? I can't remember.
In this split, yeah, I think we were first early. We were tied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, I said we need to be playing at our worst like a 5th place team. And I think there were times where at our worst we played like a 9th place team and we lost to Golden Guardians, right? Like, we hit a low. And it's hard. It's always hard to say, like, did we play? Was that lost to a Team Liquid, like a 5th place quality caliber loss there? Or was that like a 8th place? You're making it up at that point. You really can't do a lot if it's not, if you're not playing against the 9th place team to determine how low you've gone.
Yeah.
But certainly some of our losses have looked pretty bad. But I think overall that has come to play out. Like, I think we have played like on our bad days, a 5th place team, and on our good days, we've shown that we can beat teams in the top 3 or 4. So, yeah, right where we thought we'd be. So let me throw that dart. I want to talk about. Like, and this is just, it's more of a general topic, but I think this team is a great example of it. And it's something that I see broadly in League of Legends, but it's this idea of incremental improvement for a team or a roster versus sudden ascension, where you buy perks and you are on a different tier, right? Like, it's the two philosophies to building a team in League of Legends. And I think we all know that the sudden ascension roster typically is the one that pans out. I think there's some interesting examples from maybe the LPL most recent, but like there are teams that pop up, and there's been one in the LCK too, where it's just like a team of rookies, right? And they
like the old Griffin,
crazy good. Yeah, the old Griffin, the old did Sandbox have a crazy run, or maybe it's even FPX? Weren't they at one point like a team of relative unknowns? I can't remember the names of the teams.
I don't think all of them were.
Yeah,
but yeah,
you're closer to that stuff. Yeah. But you get what I'm saying.
We're not. This is so far outside of our expertise, chat. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
But it's that idea where it's like, it wasn't like they went out and signed a bunch of world beaters and then beat everyone in the world. They just kind of found crazy talent, and then suddenly they were the team. So, like, I want to talk about, what does it take to have incremental improvement? Like, is that doable? Is it possible? Because I do kind of feel like this roster it's closer to, obviously, you don't have to look far beyond where we finished the split to say it's closer to being a viable title contender than probably any team we've had since spring 2018. What are we missing? What does it take to get there? How do we make changes that don't just keep us in this kind of ever spinning merry-go-round of 4th or 5th place cap?
I didn't think about this before the pod, but actually, as you ask me, it's an interesting question, because if you think about answering it this way, so you're saying like what kind of incremental improvement could we find, right? Think about it that way.
Yeah.
Jordan, if I tell you to give me 3 things you'd like to see the team do better, what would you say?
Shore up weak side. More dominant jungle. And here's the interesting one. I would say that for mid, if I get 3, I'm going to say a mid laner who can dominate lane.
Well, but incremental improvement, I think in that framing of the question, we're not talking about switching out players, right?
Okay, so I would say, short weak side.
Like, look at this team. What can this team do now to improve?
Yeah, like we need to get closer to the point where he has the same. And this is the thing, right?
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of this stuff you just look at the beginning of the season.
Exactly, that's my point. Now, you didn't actually say a third one within that framework, but that's exactly what my point was. If you look at what could this team do better, I think the points that we would focus on are things that like we used to do better in this same split, even.
Right.
And it's like, I would probably say, yeah, closer being back to his normal self. Ssumday shoring up the weak.
I'm struggling to find it. Is it just like more assertive ganks, or like I feel like he just has spent a lot of time running around.
Just lately. I think playmaking on the same page with the players. But so that Ssumday, and then just overall aggression, like making plays. We've largely abandoned the playmaking identity that we had at the beginning of split. So that's kind of like my off the top of the head, like what could this team do to incrementally improve list? And the problem with that is that those are things we did well at the beginning of the split and now have fallen off. So it's like, it's not really improvement. It's more like trying to revert to what we used to do, which kind of is, when I think about it that way, that's a little worrying. And before you asked me that question, I wouldn't have said that I have that kind of worry, because it gets really blurry where you draw the line on that. Whose fault is that? Or whose primary responsibility is that? Is that a coach thing? Is that is that a personnel thing? I'm not sure. I honestly don't know. But I think it is worrying that the fact that like the areas where we would like to improve are not new territory for these guys. It's like getting back on the bicycle again. And that I don't think is what you want to see for a team that's in our like skill bracket, right? It's like you would just think that the improvement would be the guys are playing really well, they're playing solidly, they're playing as expected. So with that in mind, maybe we could add this, and that doesn't really seem like the position that we're in. So that to me is kind of weird. I don't know what to make of that. You made me think of it with the question, so I don't really like have a fully formed opinion on it. But
yeah, I want to come back to identity at some point before we wrap. But I think the other thing I gotta say is, like, it is such an interesting problem because we have this enticing, right? No one in management can forget about lock-in and how we looked at the start of this thing. And here's what happens. We've not only have we taken a swing at sudden ascension, we've missed. We brought Bang in and it completely fell flat. I would even say, look at Perks. Do you think that Jack would say his team right now is better than his team from last season? Obviously, they didn't end in a great place.
Yeah.
But like
the ceiling of that team,
yeah. That was one of the most dominant teams, Cloud9 2020, the LCS has seen. I don't know how many games they won in a row. It was a lot. I wasn't counting, so it wasn't my team. But like this Cloud9
before we broke them, yes.
Before we prune squatted them. they this Cloud9 team almost didn't finish first. There was a chance that they wouldn't have finished first, right? I feel like C9 2020 spring wrapped up first in like week 5, right? Like they stomped everybody to the point. So you buy perks and you think, well, we're a clear, lock for semis at Worlds, and you get roughed up by CLG. Like who? So it's just, there isn't a clear answer. And I think that's one of the things that makes League compelling, also maddening. But like going back to us, I wouldn't even be able to say to you, like, let's say we go out and buy a great mid laner, as we've said every year, what if for the last 3 years. Let's say we do that and Closer still plays a bit anemically and Ssumday is still having weak side problems. Our mid laner is not going to be the thing that takes us to the top, right? Like you have to get every piece right, which I think is what is so hard to win a title in this game. Everything has to be working well. And here's what I'll keep coming back to. There was a point this season where it was. And I don't know if you can just forget that, so you're always going to be wondering, like, do you replace Ssumday? We know what he can be. And it was to say he couldn't get back to that point. And Ssumday at his best is good enough to win a title in the LCS. Absolutely. So do you give up on that? Closer at his best is a ganking machine, right? He's got 2 assists before 5 minutes.
It's really far back, I got to think, but yeah,
I know,
used to be that
right?
way.
Like, but that, like, it's in there somewhere, I'd assume. So I don't know what to say. I don't know the answer. It's a crazy hard problem.
Not to dive into this because I don't want to have this as a full blown conversation. But when you talk about mid lane, man, it's like, yeah, well, if we sign that, star mid laner, it doesn't solve our problems. True,
maybe,
but
I don't know.
Yeah, right. It doesn't automatically, but what it does do is allow you to build a team around someone who's excellent in the most important position on the map. So that's where the value of that mid laner is so high, is because it's beyond merely what can this group of players do? Will they click this split? It's essentially an insurance that you're going to be very good for a while, like basically as long as you own that contract. It's very rare that doesn't really work out.
What would you say Cloud9, like, do you expect, and I'll let me ask the full question so it doesn't sound like I'm trolling. What do you say that Cloud9 needs to do to get to the point where they have attained what you say is possible with the world-class mid laner? Because I feel like they're not quite there yet. What needs to change?
Well, remember, we're having this frame of discussion within NA, where I think the goal really, like when we're talking about team building, we're talking about winning a domestic title. It's really hard to imagine them truly competing on a world stage. Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. I mean, we did see TL do really well at MSI. Look, I don't know. But what I'm talking about is like having that powerful mid laner like Perks is basically a ticket to constant contention for the title. Mm-hmm. Constant contention. Even if things aren't going super, like Fudge he's basically being a weak side player right now, but imagine if you could swap Fudge out with like Alfari, right? Or even Ssumday, that team probably gets close to unbeatable at that point. Right. Mm-hmm. And I know that they've dropped games, but it's Perk's first split. They're also in first place and they're also probably going to win. So it's a little hard to like have that conversation super seriously.
It's not a ticket to instant success, but it gives you the access to a winning roster.
Yeah. So it's and putting it more simply with a really hard to argue with thing. It's like it's really hard to imagine winning a title without a great mid laner. Without a top 3 mid laner, it's really hard to picture winning a title.
Right.
But
I agree.
With one, it's really hard to picture not contending, So anyway, like I said, I don't want to have like a full litigation of mid lane because we'll do that at another time. And we've already talked about that like 1,000 times. So, it is what it is. But I think like that my worry, again, just to back up, is that the sudden ascension model has worked historically pretty well in situations where there are a lot of changes made. I mean, not even just talking about LCS or like with it's hard to call the Perks acquisition a sudden ascension because C9 was already that team, you know?
Ascendant.
But it surely didn't hurt him, right? The Sword Art acquisition has been great for TSM. Core JJ was a massive deal for Team Liquid. And even beyond that, it's like you look at like historically how teams like Kentucky have done in college basketball with their one and done guys. It's kind of similar, right?
Right.
So that tends to win, or like adding Kawhi Leonard to the Raptors or whatever. That was like a 1 year rental essentially, and they won the title. Like that thing kind of just tends to happen, which sucks. And you want to root for the teams that play the long game, right? And often, like not often, but under the right circumstances, if you've got the magic between a team that has bonded over a long amount of time and they have been developed together and they've got that experience, a lot of reps, that experience can lead them to toppling these kind of more sudden developed teams instead of the long game. But I don't know, man. Things change so fast. Well, and the calculation always changes because every team is making so many changes. I mean, if Cloud9 added Perks to their lineup, guess what? That's a different bar that you're comparing them to last year when they had Niski, right? It's just like he's better. So they got better. So to be in contention with them, you need to be even better than you needed to be last year when you didn't contend with them.
Right.
I don't know, man.
Well, and here's the other thing. This model, sudden ascension, it really only works for a few teams at a time. There are only so many that the best players in the world is a scarce commodity.
Yeah.
And so even if you want to go out, okay, let's
just talk about NA though. I just want to point that out. I'm not arguing for best in the world. I'm saying best in NA.
But to be best in NA, you have to have a best in the world caliber player. Because that's what Sword Art is. That's what Core JJ is. That's what Perks is. I'd say Alfari is there, right?
He might
NA
be,
is NA, but more and more NA is becoming a place where really great talent is coming. Perks is at the prime of his career, right? This is not retirement home for him. He might be playing, he might be kind of snoozing it because he can. But if you want to win a title in NA, haters not going to like it. You have to have great players, right? This is not like you and I aren't going to get picked up. It's not going to happen. This is not going to be like, oh, that ragtag bunch of dudes just went out there and won a title because everybody else didn't realize it was free. So if you, I can't remember what I was saying. What was I?
the point about the best in the world caliber players being required.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So being ascended, like if you want to copy that model, right? Like who do you get? Who do you get who can beat Perks reliably? Just about nobody. Like even if everybody in the LCS decided, okay, that's the model we're going to do, the 10th person to to sign somebody is not going to be signing a world-class player. You're not going to have the 10 best mids aren't going to be in the LCS next year. And so I think you get to a point where even if you want to splash cash to buy somebody who can compete with Perks and Jensen and whoever else, PoE, it's your options are that much more limited. And so you have to dig and find people. It's not as easy as just saying, because the teams who can do it are already doing it. It's a have and a have not situation. And that's what I think this comes down to. Are we a have or a have not team? And if we can't buy the same way that TSM, C9, and TL do, right now we're on the outside looking in. They're going to have first dibs on Perks and whoever the next great player is to come to NA. And if that's what it is, then our only hope at winning a title, until we get lucky, right, or until we find somebody who we can get, is to actually make incremental improvement. Like I think that's where the model, that's the flip side of that coin. Like the reason to build a model that allows you to make incremental improvements and try to get back to the form we had in lock-in is not because it's like the noble thing to do for NA. It's because unless you can beat some of these other orgs, unless you can, beat some of these other teams, go pound for pound with Jack on how much gold you can put on the table.
Gold. I like the idea that we're paying players in gold. Here's a bag of gold perks.
Exactly. Might as well have. It would have been probably a little bit more convenient. But like, we can't do it, right? Like, we have tried to buy players in the past. I'm positive that ended up.
Yeah, there were reports about that last year, right? With Humanoid and perks. Yeah.
We talked to him, and he didn't come to he didn't come to 100 Thieves. So it's not as easy as just saying just buy the best players then, even if you want to, right?
Well, we don't know that situation. We could have been outbid, for example. So
that's what I'm saying.
I don't know. The thing is, though, as I'm already on record for, and I'm sticking by, there at some point a solution to this problem needs to happen, or else we need to find other people who can solve that problem. No matter which direction it is, whether it's the splashing the cash or scouting out a preeminent talent. One of those things needs to happen for us to get into true title contention, in my opinion. But that whole last 15 minutes was kind of outside the bounds of what I think we were planning on talking about tonight. But it was awesome. So I think you get the rant of the night thing with what you were just saying.
Yes.
But yeah, so that leaves us in a weird space as because basically your argument is we're not going to contend. Right now, we're not going to contend. Incremental improvement needs to happen. We can't really identify the incremental improvement beyond getting us back to what we used to do. I don't know if that means in your mind, hey, coach is kind of screwing this up or not. Do you have an opinion on that yet? For me, this is always one of those things where it's like, how could I possibly have enough information to know this?
Where do we go from here? Right? Like we've reached this point where we'd say, okay, so yeah. I mean, I think my answer to that is we are fourth place, right? We are the fourth place team. It's exactly where we thought we'd be. You look at the roster, you look at everyone else, and you say, okay, about fourth, right? And there's a reason for that, because you're going to lose games against the top teams more often than not and win games against the teams that are worse. That's how you get to fourth. So yeah, like I don't think, if I'm being realistic, I don't think we are a title contender. I don't expect that we're going to beat C9.
Which sucks because we thought we were early.
I spoiled my prediction here, but like I like this team. I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah, like I think incremental improvement is possible. And I guess if you force my hand, I'd say I think the way you take a bunch of players and make them better at playing together is by having a good coach. Like, I think that's what it is. And I am with you that I don't know what to say beyond that. And I'm not even using that as an evaluative statement of Zix and how he's done. But like, I think that is one of the roles in the definitional sense of what a coach does, right? Is he brings people together and makes them better than the sum of their parts.
Yeah. I'll come down and say this though. The one area that I think we can point to preparation in for at least a significant amount, like this is one of the, so few things are going to be black and white, like it's this person's fault or this person's responsibility or whatever. So keep that in mind when I say this. But am I correct in assuming that you feel as I do that we've still been behind the champ meta?
Yes.
Okay. So that seems to be one thing where like drafts are not our forte at the moment. And we've had some cool drafts. We've had some definite winning drafts, even ones that get erased by fire alarms, or shall we say fire alarms. So we had to pull out 2 winning drafts against Immortals, for example. But I still feel like there are some champions. I mean, when are we going to see 100 Thieves play Seraphine? I don't know. And most teams are getting it banned out against them, right? But like, we have not pulled it out. And I feel like it would be let through against us if they were just thinking about us in the draft, right?
Yeah.
Math Geek brings up Scion. I think that's another pick that has been thrown out recently a little bit. Yeah, man, I don't know, but it does seem like we're always kind of catching up on the meta. So that will be one area where we could probably improve right now. That is outside of the whole conundrum of just getting us back to where we used to be, you know?
Yeah. And it does come back to maybe that's exactly what he's trying to do. And it's not like the players aren't good enough or, like we don't know. That's something we don't know. We don't have access to that. So that, I think for that reason, it's very hard to say.
At least we did the Silas thing, man.
Yeah. Like Silas has been great for us. That has been a super strong pick.
Yeah.
And I think it's a smart answer to a lot of meta picks. So like that is there.
So yeah, big credit for drafting Silas. That's been very good.
But like, do we think that Ssumday can't play Scion? Like, I think Ssumday can play Scion.
I know he can play Scion. Yeah. What I don't want to see is Gnar anymore.
Yeah, I'd like to stop seeing Gnar. I mean, here's the thing: Ssumday's a good team fighter. Gnar is a great team fighting champ. Show up, stun 5, win, and he does that. We just don't win because usually it's after somebody's already been killed. So anyway, man, we've got some questions. I think here, let me put my my cherry on top. I think it's this: like, trust the Papa. Papa's job here is to have this same conversation with the full suite of information available to him, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I'm at as a fan. Is I am all aboard. Like, I'm not mad that we finished 4th. I think that's a good outcome that we can feel good about.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for bringing us back. Yes. Thank you for saying that, because we got really deep into what's wrong with the team, and I think that's important. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. In any 4th place team, there's going to be something wrong, because if there wasn't, you'd be 1st place, right? So like, it's fine. It's fine if you're okay.
That's the line.
If you're okay with being in 4th, and if you predicted at the start of the season and say, I'd be happy to finish 4th because we just did 9th and that wasn't great, then you have to also accept that there's going to be things that you're not great at as other teams, right? And it's been a roller coaster for sure with this roster and this team. Like, whoa, we were riding high at the start. We came way down. We made some changes and came back up. That's kind of what it takes. We could have done nothing and probably finished 5th or 6th. And then we're in the we're not playing C9 in the first round. So I guess, you tell me how much of a difference it is. But yeah, I'm not mad about 4th. And I do want to see, like, that's what incremental progress to me feels like, is can we get Ssumday back firing again? If we have Ssumday on point for summer, at the start of summer, we are going to win more games than we otherwise would. That's incremental progress. The pieces are there to do it. We know it can happen. It's going to take people figuring it out. And I think that if it can't happen, then like that's where you just got to start. Like, the people who in the spots to see these things have to make that assessment, have a conversation, make the hard calls, but say, look, there's all the pieces are here. We should be playing better than this. We should be making improvements. We should be pushing things forward. And if we're not, like, if we are regressing throughout all of summer, we've missed an opportunity.
Yeah. All right, let's do some listener takes. We got a lot this week, and we're not going to go through all of them, but we're going to pick through some of the better ones. And I want to start with my personal favorite. And let me say this. So Nickel Polka last week had an amazing take about Golden Clue. I just loved it. This week, look, if you guys send me stuff like this, it's guaranteed to be on the podcast. So if I could encourage you to send any type of thing to me, it would be this. So here, let's start with this take from Twitter user AJ Beck 05. All right. Who is looking forward to this series against C9 and points out that if Freak and Kobe cast the C9 series, we will lose. If Captain Flowers and Azael cast the series, we will win. 100T is 4-1 when Captain Flowers and Azael cast.
Look at that.
Now, interesting stat. But he didn't stop there. So when he DM'd me this take, which I absolutely love. So I asked if he happened to have the rest of the caster records, And he did. And he didn't go find it when I asked for it. He had it like right away. So this is how I know my man AJ Beck 05 is serious about this take. Here are the caster duos and the records, the corresponding records. All right, so
I love it.
Freak and Kobe were 1 and 2. Notice Freak is there again. Pastry Time and Azale 1 and 1. Captain Flowers and Azale 4 and 1. Interestingly, Freak and Azale 3 and 1. Captain Flowers and Crumbs 0 and 1. Crumbs and Pastry Time 1 and 0. Captain Flowers and Kobe 1 and 1. So it would seem that Captain Flowers and Azale is our strongest duo there for sure. So I agree with his analysis, but it is interesting that Freak and Azale are 3 and 1. I don't know what to do with this information other than to know that it's 100% true and valuable and important, which is why I'm sharing it here.
Right.
I love
the
this
best
take.
Casting duo is also our best.
Right. So if you're a betting person and you want to find out who's casting the match, this might be useful to you.
If you're in the LCS production team and you want 100T to win, you know what to do.
And this right. This brings up the this is like the finishing touch on the Freak thing. So we talked about how Freak spoke this into existence for us. I don't know about you guys. It seems like Freak is just opportunistically dumping on us when he can. He's like, oh, look at that cannon. They didn't CS that cannon. 100 Thieves missed that cannon. Did you see it? Oh, it's so tragic. That was a cannon they missed. Oh, look at Ryoma. He missed that CS. Oh, my goodness gracious. Wow. 100T, the CS problems. Like he said something about like how something was such an awful play or like this is an awful thing or whatever. And like he is just taking every chance to go at us. And when did this happen, man? I didn't really have an opinion about Freak before, but now he's making me angry. He's making me angry. And Sandwich in chat said Freak equals Mark Z. I've always thought Mark Z like gets too bad of a rap for 100T. I think he's been pretty historically fair to us, to be honest. Like Mark Z himself. And
even his closer thing. Like he backed it up with facts, you know, like he made, you're free to not like his opinion, but he made an informed argument and a credit because that's an important thing to do. Yeah.
Now, and again, look, I don't have a problem with Freak criticizing us, right? It's fun. It's his thing to do, whatever. It's just crazy how often he seems to be dumping on us is the only thing. I'm a little suspect that Freak is causing problems for us, man. And AJ Beck, who submitted this take in chat, says Nate is about to block him like G2 and C9. Oh my goodness. All right, AJ Beck, that was the finishing touch. We cannot improve on your work tonight, so we'll stop there. I wanted to go to a take from our old friend BC, who said, we are 1-5 against the top 3 teams, with our most successful week being week 2 of spring with 1 win against Team Liquid and a game against C9 where they stomped us, then threw a fight, but then we threw again at Baron. So it's like we had a reasonable shot at beating C9. And then we threw after they originally threw. And he says, not saying we cannot be at least competitive, but it's going to be tough. And I think this is exactly what you were saying, Jordan, earlier, where it's like we have the perfect recipe for a 4-1 team. Where and we're gonna lose the games against tough opposition and largely not lose the games against the weaker opposition. That's been, with a couple outliers, true about us all split long. And I don't see BC being wrong about this at all. So yeah, I mean, like that's pretty indicative of if you can take down top teams. For instance, not to make yet another analogy to Illinois basketball, which is on my mind a lot because we're so freaking good and we're going to win the title. I hope you're listening, Bama Tide. But that's a team. Illinois this year, 6 losses, right? So you wouldn't ordinarily think of them as a top team, you know, a top 3 team in the country, but consistently beating top teams, especially down the stretch, has been kind of the MO for them, you know? And I think we've only lost 1 of the last like 14 games or something like that. And along the way took down a lot of top teams. It's a really good indicator of of your potential if you can consistently do that. And we are consistently not doing that. So very simple analysis, but I think it is hard to, argue against that for sure.
Right. The optimistic take here would be we almost beat C9 in a best of 5 once this season. And this is best of 3, I believe. Will it be best of 3? Anybody? Chat? I think it's best of 3 first round. We're different. They're different. I don't expect that will be the outcome here, but kind of makes you nostalgic, Cole, for the old days of lock-in.
Oh man, where we were good. I thought
we were great in lock-in. We're still good.
I thought this was best of 5, man. I was trying to see if I could pull it up while you were finishing up, but
best of 5. 99 says best of 5.
Okay,
sure best of 5 all the way through.
I think
Boys,
it
we
is.
See, yeah.
So
I like it.
We'll talk about our prediction later. I don't want to get into it right now. There was a take here from Luca with a bunch of numbers next to his name, who said Ryoma's good performances have been against teams who really don't have anything to play for, and he kind of goes missing in big games, in my opinion. Do you think it's back to standard time for playoffs? Luca, I must respectfully say that I don't agree with much of this take. Ryoma hasn't really been around that long to conclusively say how he does against the bigger teams, but I think he's had one bad game, couple of okay games, and a couple of good games, right? Like, I don't think there's a trend of him disappearing against the best talent. And when we have lost those games, it didn't really seem to be his fault.
Yeah.
And I would have been cool with Damonte sticking in if they never made the switch in the first place, but having made the switch, I don't think we should go back. It's just a lot to keep switching back and forth. I don't know. As pointed out in the chat, Ryoma last year is different than Ryoma this year. Like I know he's not like a brand new League of Legends player. Like he had Osh experience under his belt, a good amount of it. But yeah, I think there has been a change in the way he plays. So I don't want to evaluate him aggregate last year and this year. We're talking about skill level, but anything else to add on that, Jordan?
I would just say he's changed from last year. This is more clarifying, but I feel like a lot of the things, as we talked about earlier, like same limiter is still there, right? In your mind? Like, yeah, he's I'd say he's probably improved since last year. I think it's fair to say, but there's still the same types of things that we saw in 2020. This is more of a conversation that we're probably wanting to have right now. But like, do you see Ryoma as, when you say he's changed, do you see him as still fundamentally a similar player, or do you think that there's actually more upside here than when we made the change at the beginning of this season?
I think he's the same style of player, the same kind of player, but I think he's just better. You know?
Okay.
Yep. So I when I say that, I don't think he's like radically better.
Right.
I think he made incremental improvement, Jordan.
I'm a fan of that. I don't know if you've heard my comments on that topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. Laredo Potato said, "It is clear." Yeah, that is good. It is clear that we are still struggling with shot calling and macro in the mid game. In my opinion, Ryoma is performing on par or slightly better than Damonte, but I think the team is really missing Damonte's early pressure and voice. Do we see Damonte swap in if C9 blows us out of the water, but Ryoma still performs okay, or does Ryoma have to be massively underperforming? I think I'd prefer to focus on the Damonte voice and whether the team's missing that portion of the take. Jordan, what's your thought there?
I mean, we have comms now, more comms than we've had.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Like, I think what Laredo Potato's probably thinking about here is early in the split and lock-in, where Damonte was part of the gang squad. And I think we're all missing that. And it feels like that is more than just him. because I think this you bring it back to what you said earlier. The change in our play style preceded the switch to Ryoma. And so either I think it's something else. I think it's something else is my response to this take. I don't know what that thing is. I would sure like to get it back, whether it's Damonte or Ryoma. But I think because it happened before Ryoma came in, it tells me that it is something else other than just Damonte himself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, to answer the second part, I don't think that Damonte swaps back in if C9 blows us out.
Agree. Hard agree. Nickel Polka followed up last week's take with this one, in which he said 100T have exhausted all peaceful options. It is time for Grayson, Golden Glue, God Gamer, Gregory Gilmer.
G.
And you know, there's not really much to say about this take because it's clearly a joke and obviously would never have any potential of happening. And it's clearly there's no precedent for it within 100 Thieves. Mm-hmm. It's clearly not something we would ever do. Most clearly and most definitely. That's all I'll say right there. One more. Karlski01 says, I don't think closers look great on Olaf lately. Would rather see him play other champs like Hecarim and Talia during the best of fives. So, in this past week, he played Olaf, loss, Udyr, win against FlyQuest, and Hecarim, win against Immortals. My memory of his Immortals performance was that he looked pretty good. And the previous week, he also played Hecarim versus Golden Guardians, in which he looked fantastic. So, what do you think?
I mean, I think Olaf is one of those champs that it has in the past contributed in a big way to our early objective taking. You know, it's been an easy one for him to pop in, just do a little quick run by lane. So, yeah, I think in general, I agree with this. I think I agree that he's not looked great on Olaf. I talked a little bit about, especially, it was made very clear to me that he's not been a huge pressure in the game. Let me give a more concise response to this. I think our game style has shifted from early fights to scaling and kind of carry through FBI and Ryoma. Like that feels right now like our plan to win these games.
Yep.
I think Olaf is a particularly weak champion in that lineup. And the Hecarim I like in that lineup because his ult, because he can burst people very easily. He has access to the back line. You know, and Talia, like, I don't need to go champion by champion. But I think Olaf just doesn't play into that as well. There's so many games where Olaf becomes like, am I going to go? Am I going to go? I'm not going to go. And just like running back and forth, right? Throwing axes. So his tools are very limited when it comes to that kind of game where you're looking for two people specifically to carry you. So I think if that's our style now, yeah, I'd like to see him on some different looks.
Yeah. I think there were Talia nerfs, right? I think like Talia's not in the same place as she once was. I think there was even an Olaf nerf, but he's still good. I was just looking at regular season, so not including lock-in. What was the Olaf record for closer? Mm-hmm. Let me finish tallying that up. That's 1, 2, 3, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1. He is 5-2 on the regular season on Olaf. Interesting to note, there was a period of Olaf banning against him. So he's 5-2 on the champ.
Before the nerfs came through, probably, that made him a ban.
Yeah. So I think like playstyle is probably a good indicator. That's probably a good place to analyze that take. So as you have done that, I'm just going to step aside and say, listen to Jordan. His beard is longer. He's clearly wiser.
I'm not going to argue it.
But, you know, beards are also a common feature of prophets. And it is time for Prophet Cole to make another appearance because let's talk about next week. Jordan, you mentioned this already. We play Cloud9 in the first match of our what are we calling it? The middle of the season fight. What do we call
The
it?
halfway there
Half
stuff.
the halfway argument.
I think I was calling it the midpoint, the midway fight. Midway fight.
Midway
We can
fight.
call it whatever we want, Cole. The branding is not solidified yet.
Well, we are in the upper bracket, thank goodness. But that means we are playing C9 first. Now, this is where I'll give my hot take. I think, like, for whatever reason, even though C9 has beat us both times this split, and we've got one win over TL. Do we have a win against TSM too, right? Or am I tripping? No, we've lost both games to TSM. So yeah, we lost both TSM. We won one against Team Liquid. I still, for whatever reason, would kind of feel like playing Cloud9 is actually better for us earlier. I just don't feel like the matchup against TL and TSM are viable for us. It's like C9, we're probably going to lose, but there's a chance something crazy happens because of Fudge, which, yeah, I don't know. Or maybe we tilt Sven. I heard that idea being thrown out to tilt Sven being our strategy. I don't know. I don't have more than a feel about this. But since I've been Prophet Cole for like a solid 3 weeks now, then I'm going to just roll with it.
Yeah.
That being said, prediction-wise, I'll go first and say, I think we lose this series, and I'm not sure we take a game.
Oh.
I'm going to predict the 0-3.
Cole, I wish I had some way to... Here's how people know I'm not just piggybacking off the Prophet, which is trademarked, so don't take that as a segment. Any of you other fan podcasters out there. But here, Cole, I am also predicting an 0-3. And you know I didn't steal it because I don't think I've ever done that, even against the steepest of odds. But
well, when you believe in the Prophet, it'll make you do things that perhaps you hadn't done before.
Exactly. So yeah, I think C9 is... I think they've got our number. And I just don't think we are at solidified enough yet to give them a run. So I think it's an 0-3.
If we lose, I think we play EG, right?
Dig.
Oh, is it Dig? I feel like we're going to beat whoever it is. So, I mean, we'll talk about that when that happens.
Although, yeah, round 2 isn't until next weekend, so we have another chance.
And I know, but I'm just saying it's like this weekend is kind of like, let's just get it over with. Honestly, let's just get it over with. Because I think, like, I don't think we're going to just lose all of this playoffs. Like, I think we're going to have some victory to celebrate.
We have a 2-0.
I'm looking forward to that.
Dig,
yeah, we do. And against EG,
I will say, there's a chance that that C9 shows up not tippy top form, because I think they can probably not be tippy top form and still get through. Like, I think there's just a gap there.
Yeah.
So if that happens, I could see us picking up a game if they kind of try some goofy stuff. But I'm sticking with my 0-3. But I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. You're just trying to sandbag. I'm not feeling it.
I am.
Well, that's what we come down.
If they do exactly that and it happens, Cole, who's the Prophet? Who's the Prophet now?
All right. Probably the guy who predicted both outcomes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not suspect at all. So now that we're venturing into personal insult territory, we should probably wrap up the pod. I think that this weekend is going to be if we do the right thing here, we should probably just skip the podcast altogether next week. We should probably just agree we're going to lose this weekend and it's not going to mean much. It's not really going to mean much. So here is to hoping that some surprise happens and we have some viable stuff to talk about this weekend. But honestly, from a fan perspective, I feel like we're just on hold until we get to round 2. So with that in mind, the pressure's off, right? The pressure's off.
Right.
We can just have fun watching games for the first time in forever without feeling like it critically matters. Yeah, we'll play a fun game like G2, right? We'll draft. That's right. We'll draft all Freljord champions.
Perks knows about that.
Exactly. Beat them at their own game. All right. So that's going to do it for us. Rec League is back on for this weekend. Woo! I apologize for last week. lots of crazy stuff going on at work. But yeah, we are fully planning on doing Rec League this Thursday, and goodness gracious, I need it. Matter of fact, that will be more compelling League of Legends than our matchup against C9, if I'm being honest. So don't miss it. Follow us on Twitter at 100 Talk Pod to get the notifications on that. We'll tweet out the sign up form on Wednesday. Everybody, thanks for being here. We're going to set up a raid for those who are live with us on stream. And whether or not you are with us on stream, we love you and we miss you already.
Take care.
Okay, everybody. Who's it going to be? Let's do
got...
not Travis. Let's do Avalanche is streaming.
Jestot is streaming.
Jestot. We've rated her a lot. Not that I don't like it. Who else we got? Why can't my list is always so short?
Avalanche. Yeah. Oh,
Anonymous, thank you for what is that? Like 30 subs just tonight?
Oh my gosh.
I'm seeing some Frosty here. I don't think we've ever rated him, so maybe we should go that way.
Sure. Let's do a Frosty raid. People like,
all
hey,
right.
Stick around for the raid. Get your channel points so you can lose them on Thursday.
That's right. We'll make sure to mess up the outcomes. Everybody, again, thanks for being with us. We're going to raid Frosty. We'll see you in his channel as he takes